Welcome everyone. The topic for the day is crystal clear communication. We will be earmarking absolutely the must-all requirements for communications to be undeniably be clear and vibrant to everyone. There's an undeniable communications where persistent records are being maintained and communicated transparently. So welcome. So, what would be the agenda for the day? It will always tell me all about the requirement that comes around it. Define communications. This is what we will be talking about it. Explain the importance of effective communication. What it means to communicate as a professional. This is what we will be talking around. Describe communication process model. Explain how social media changing the nature of business communication. Defining ethics. Explain the difference between the various dilemmas. I am talking about ethical dilemmas and ethical lapses, probably listing certain guidelines for the communications choices as far as ethical communication goes around it. Explain how culturally diverse effective business communication is all about it, and describe the steps that you require to take in order to communicate more effectively across the organization. This is what we are trying to go across it. List four general guidelines for utilizing communication technology effectively. This is what needs to be understood. So, what is meant by communication? Communication is a skill that tells you what you can learn. It is like riding a cycle or typing. If you're unwilling to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. So if you are willing, remember, if you're willing to work upon it, you can improvise, be it bicycling, be it typing, so can be communication is all about it. It becomes effortlessly after a point of time. So let us try to understand how we can improve the quality of communication that we embark. The communication cycle, as you must have come through up teamed presentation, in which we talk about the senders and the receivers. In between is a message and the noise that comes around it. Now let me understand, try to tell it to you what are the noises. These noises are nothing but the communication channel that you utilizes, and basically what it comes in, it filters, or should I say it introduces certain elements which at times decrypts the message in a different fashion or a fashion which was not intended for. Let us understand the communication channel. One is face to face, that is an in-person communication. We have videos. With the advent of video calls, we have video call communication, video conferencing, where we can speak to a number of people probably located in different geographical location at one time. Speech, we have a speech where we are addressing a number of people, the audience. There is a number of people in the audience, and it can be a monologue, emails, letters, social medias, and Wikipedias, and so on and so forth. So basically, this is a gentleman, and this is a gentleman, or a lady who is a sender and a receiver. Every time there is a message that has been sent, it has to be reverted back in terms of a feedback, so that it tells me or completes the communication cycle. If you look into it, it is in circular in notions. So we have the sender, the person who encodes and decodes, and the receivers who encodes and decodes. In between this encoding and decoding, there is a noise that comes and creeps out here. So communication process is transferring of information and meaning between senders and receivers using one or more written, oral, visual, and electronic media. The essence of communication is sharing. What exactly is sharing? It's providing data, information, insights, inspirations in exchange of the benefits that both you and the people with whom you are communicating. So it's basically an exchange of ideas. Ideas can be anything and everything. So no matter what career path you pursue, communication is an essential to your success at every stage. You can have a greatest ideas in the world, but they are not good to your company or your career if you can't express them persuasively or clearly or uh, clear, transparently. So basically, aside from personal benefit, communication should be important to you because it is important to your company. Effective communication helps businesses and numerous ways it provides closer ties with important communication communities in the marketplace. Now, what is this all about it? It tells me about your bonding with your customers, with your vendors, opportunities to develop conversation, perceptions, and trends. In social media, the company nowadays can have a real time feedbacks and feelings about their product and services. In it enhances to increase productivity and faster problem solving of all better financial results and higher return for investor is what we are looking for. Earlier warning of potential problem from rising business costs, critical safety issues is what we look into it. Stronger decision making based on timely, reliable information, clearer and more persuasive marketing message. This is what we keep on telling it out to you. And last but not the least is the engagement quotient. It enhances manifold with the employees, with their works, and so on and so forth, leading to a higher employee satisfaction and lower attrition rate altogether. So you see there are so many benefits of communication, be it with your customers, be it with your communities, be it with your stakeholders, be it with resolving issues, resolving conflict, be it with upgrading and having a pulse of the environment. It is communication and only communication that can help you out. So effective communication strengthens the connection between the company. Remember, when I say between the company, we are talking about everyone. We are talking about the employees. We are talking about the shareholders. We are talking about the suppliers, neighbors, community, nation, world as a one, as a whole unit. We are talking out here. It is all the stakeholders that we exist. Remember, we work in a society and our actions or somebody else's actions will have a rippling effect to the rest of the community to make to understand the communication efforts as to be as effective as possible. B, make it factual enough altogether, practical enough, concise enough, clear enough, and persuasive enough. And that is what tells me everything. Why do we go around it? This is where we provide practical information, give facts rather than impression. Our impression which might be preformed, our impression that might be biased, our impression that might not be factual. So impressions are not to be counted for, data is to be counted for, analysis to be done for, present information choices in an efficient manner, clarify expectations and responsibilities, offer compelling, persuasive arguments and recommendation that is there as the case might be. So explain what it means to communicate as far as in business context is concerned. Remember, a good place to start to consider what it means to be professional. Professionalism is a quality of performing at a highest of a level and conducting oneself with pride, with purpose, with honesty, with transparency. It means doing more than putting in hours, collecting a paycheck, true to professional, go beyond minimum expectation and commit to making meaningful contribution. Professionalism can be broken down into six distinct traits: striving to excel, being dependable and accountable, being a team player, demonstrating a sense of etiquette, making ethical decisions, and maintaining a positive outlook. And that is what we always adhere to look forward to. This is professionalism. Remember the six distinct traits. Let me repeat once for you. Striving to be excel, this is number one. being dependable and accountable, number two, being a team player, number three, demonstrate a sense of etiquette, number four, making ethical decision is number five, and the sixth one is maintaining a positive outlook. And this is what we are striving to go forward to it as the professionalism is concerned. Given the importance of communication in business, employer expect you to be competent enough in the range of communication tasks. This includes organizing ideas and information logically and completely, expressing yourself coherently, persuasively in a different media, building persuasive arguments to gain acceptance for important ideas, evaluating data and information critically to know what you can and what you cannot. Trust actively, listening to others, communicate effectively with people from diverse background, from diverse experiences, using communication technologies effectively and efficiently. This is what we aspire to do so, following accepted standards of grammar, spellings, and other aspects of high quality writing and speaking. Absolutely having an impeccable hold over the language that you claim to have knowledge for. I am not referring to a particular language per se, any language, be it your mother tongue, be it your international language, be it a regional language, be it any language that you're going around across it. If you can have an impeccable hold as far as the standards of grammar, spelling, and everything is to be considered, that needs to be understood, learned, adapting your message and communication style depending upon your audiences, depending upon your situation. Communication always should be done in a civilized fashion. It should meet the expectation of the business etiquette of the organization. Communicating ethically when choices are in crystal clear is what we look into it. Respecting confidentiality of private company information, following applicable laws and regulation, meaning managing your time wisely and using resources efficiently. This is what is all about communication is considered to be. We speak to every company. Remember, each company is unique, having a unique communication system. Some companies would follow a regular traditional method of communication. Some companies might be good enough with email communication as a formal mode of communication, and yet there are many companies who are very adaptable to the informal means of utilizations of social media, be it social media or be it telephonic or verbal communication per se. Remember, the when we communicate within the people, within the organization, it's a different style. But when we communicate with the outside world, it remains to be a different style altogether. When we communicate with an external organization, it should be formal, very ethically correct, and the language has to be consistent. The system in this broad sense is a complex combination of communication channels such as internet, departmental meeting, company policies, organization structure, and more often than not, your personal relationship. Remember, to succeed in a job, you need to figure how your company system operates. You have to be adapting yourself to the system the company prefers to. It is how you used to gather information you need to share the information that you have, that others wants to have it from you. Successful business or professional take an audience centric approach for their communication style. Providing information to your audiences is an obviously a very important approach. The way you write, the way you speak, the way you handle a situation tells a lot. Remember, at all times you need to maintain a positive working relationships. Remember, the best communication efforts can fail. Why? Because managers can get lost or probably simply ignore the facts of the basics of the communication. The receivers of the message can interpret in a different fashion, whereas the senders might have imagined in a different fashion altogether. These variations does exist, but I will give you 8 positive steps that comes around here. Here is the 8 steps that comes which will help you follow this dictum of these 8 steps, and it will help you to a large extent altogether. That is what we are looking out here. The sender has to have an idea. The sender encodes the messages all together. The sender produces the message in a transmittable medium. The sender transmits the message through a channel. The audience receives the message. The receiver decodes the message. The receiver responds to the message. The receiver provides a feedback. This is a system that needs to be followed around here, with the idea as a message that needs to be medium, and the channel that utilizes the audiences which receives the message needs to be decoding, so on and so forth, and responding to the message until and unless the cycle is complete that comes around it. We need to have the pictographical representation of the 8 step, step number 1 and step number 8. In between, let me go through the steps. The sender has an idea. It has to encode the message. Step number 3 is to produce the message within the medium itself. The medium which has been selected has to be transmitted. Now, in the case of the audiences in the blue reflections, the audience receives the message, it decodes the message, the audience responds to the message, and then again with the medium it sends to the same senders altogether. So this basic communication model presented will let you know about what exactly needs to be done as far as possible is concerned. However, as recent years and experiences of variations of technology enabled, inspired, or should I say, the approaches to communication have changes. In contrast to publishing mindset, social communication model is interactive, conversational, and usually open to all those who wish to participate. Audience members are no longer passive recipients of messages, but active participants in a conversation. Social media have given customers and other stakeholders a voice that they did not have it in the past. So I will give you the fine nuances between what has happened and what is actually happening, or should I say, what is going to happen in the future. Let's say business communication 1.0 and business communication 2.0. So in 1.0, it's we talk, you listen, but now it is all about let's have a conversation. The tendencies of publications and broadcasting is to conversation, lectures to discussion, intrusions to permissions, unidirectional to bidirectional, multi-directional. So basically, if you have seen it in this particular picture, it was one way. Now it is multifocal, multi-local, multi-facet organization. Communication goes around it. It is all about equality. It is no way about being hierarchical or structural. It is becoming more collaborative in business communication 2.0. It is all about being reactive, responsive, rather than being passive or isolated or few channels. This is what is happening as of now. So ethics, we will talk about the ethics. Ethics are accepted principles of conduct that governs behavior within a society. Ethical behavior is a company-wide concern, but because company communications efforts are the public face of company, they are subjected to particular rigors, scrutinies from the regulators, legislators, investors. Ethical communication includes all relevant information, is true in every sense, and is not deceptive in either fashion. We talk about plagiarism, omitting essential information, selective misquoting, misrepresentation, numbers, distorting visuals, failing to respect privacy or information to the security needs. The widespread use of social media has increased the attention given to the issue of transparency, which in this context refers to the sense of openness of giving all participants a conversational access to the information they need. Remember, this is what we are looking into it. Some ethical questions are easy to recognize, resolve, but others are not. Deciding what is ethical, what is complex is not at all an easy business. Our ethical dilemmas are all about alternatives, which aren't very clear in the very first step, because at times you are supposed to take a decision which invariably going to adversely affect at least few of the stakeholders. So that is what ethical is all about it. Perhaps two conflicting alternatives are both ethical and valid. Perhaps alternative somewhere is in the gray area between clearly right and clearly wrong. This is what ethical choices is all about it. For ensuring ethical business communication requires three elements. What are they? They are ethical individual, they're ethical company leadership, and appropriate policies and structure. This is what we are looking into it. That is what we say out here. Right. Now, this is what we talk around. We need to understand these things again and again, the ethical companies and the policies and the structures that comes around it. Many companies establish this ethical policy by having an ethical code of conduct which is explicitly written in black and white to help a certain employees as to what is acceptable and what is not. This is what we look into it. Throughout your career, we will interact with a lot of people from a different background altogether. We are talking about race, gender, sexual orientation. This is what we are talking around it: national, regional, attitude, behavior, and so forth. Although the concepts are often narrowly framed in terms of ethic background, you need to understand that the rules of diversity needs to be included, incorporated. Experience can have a profound effect on the way the business people communicate. You should not you should not probably uh, rough touches the wrong edges altogether. Smart people, business leader recognizes competitive advantages to a diverse background. For all their benefit and diverse workforce, markets do present some communication channel. Understand the effect of cultures on communication is essential. Remember, cultural is a shared system of belief, attitude, values, and so on and so forth. The norms of behavior, these influences operate on certain fundamental levels that people often do not even recognize. They don't even understand. This is what the subconscious affective cultures can create: a friction between people, assuming people to think, feels the way they do. Remember, these differences in between cultures can be very big and large and profound. You don't need to become an expert in details of every culture you do business, but you need to have a basic understanding, basic level of understanding as to what is acceptable or not acceptable in a cultural dominance or cultural prevalence. So every attempt at communication within the cultural context, the pattern of the physical cues needs to be understood then and there. However, cultural around the world vary in the role or the contextual place that comes around it. Culturals are all about legalities and behaviors which impacts the communication abilities. Remember, the combination of formal and informal rules can actually help you or deter you from valid communications in a society. When we are talking about society, we are talking about attitudes towards the time, individuals towards the community values, and presumably there are certain ethical choices where we seek to have certain mutual grounds of settlement where we can understand what how to communicate and how not to go around it. Show respect. What when I say show respect, I am asking you to show respect not only to the person but to the society and the culture that you are doing a business from. Your gestures, your clothing choices, the way the attire that you go around it needs to be in tandem with the accepted practice of the culture that is there. This is of very important connotation. People whose hearing, vision, cognitive abilities to operate in a computers or other tools can be significantly disadvantaged in today's world with other elements. Employer can also invest in a variety of assistive technology that can help create a vital link for thousands of employees. In any cross-cultural situation, you can communicate more effectively. You need to have the following tips. Now, these are the tips that I need to go around it. First and foremost thing is to avoid ethnocentrism, avoid stereotyping. Do not assume that the others think, believe, or behave as you do. So this is what, accept the reality that people are from different backgrounds, from different cultures. So they might have different way of understanding or taking on the things. So learn how to communicate them and communicate respectively in a culture, tolerate ambiguity and control over your frustration. Never be distracted by superficial factors or personal appearances. Recognize your own cultural biases. Be flexible. This is what is more important. Prepare to change your habits, your attitude. Observe, learn more what you will effectively do around it. So to write effectively, now let us understand how to write effectively when you are not comfortable with using a language. The basic tips that I would love to give it to you is to have a plain language. This is what needs to be understood altogether. This is what we will go around it. We have to utilize the most common languages that comes around it. Avoid words with a different kind of meanings. Be straightforward, and in fact, if you have to utilize that word, please elaborate what exactly you are going to mean by utilizing those words. Carefully avoid any slangs. Be careful with the technical jargon. Be brief, and that is what is I would love to go around it. The more you write, the more pitfalls, the chances you might be falling into. When speaking to a person in a native language which is not your own, which you are not very confident of, speak clearly, follow these tips. Speak clearly and simply, relatively slow. Look for feedback but interpret it. Learn important phrases in your audience languages. Listen carefully, respectively. If required, ask for clarification of the meaning that comes around it. Clarify what has happened. This is what we require. So, uh, uh, the four general guidelines that I said I would be talking to you people with this thing is, in today's business, rely heavily on technology. This is what we need to go around it. Many of the technology might use in your personal life, let's say from Facebook to Twitter. The benefit of technologies are not automatic. Of course, to communicate effectively, you need to keep technology in perspective. Use technological tools, productive guard against information. Remember, technology is an aid to communication. It is not an impediment. Remember, one, technology is not an impediment, and technology cannot replace you. I keep on coming across certain emails in which been followed by another email saying that there was certain typos in the previous mail. Why? Because people were actually writing their mails on their mobiles, and probably the mobile took it on their own to give the nearest word that they go around it, and they typed it out. I would refrain you people from writing such mails, probably for which you have to give a follow-up mail. Please sit down, write it patiently, and before you hit the send button, reread the mails once and for all. No matter how innovative or popular they may be, technology has a value which, to a certain extent, it will only helps deliver right information to right people at the right time. You do not become an expert to use most communication technology effectively, but to work efficiently, you need to be familiar with the most basic of features and function that goes around it. So conversely, don't worry about learning advanced features. Definitely, yes, you actually do not really need them. The overuse or misuse of communication technology can lead to information overload. That is what we're looking into it. Make it very required things that you should never overload your information, because overloading your information becomes useless, and uh, it doesn't actually helps you to drive out of your complex situation. In fact, it makes the situation more complex altogether. As a sender, ensure that all your messages are meaningful and important to the receiver. Even the best technology can hinder information or communication if they are utilized in a wrong fashion. For instance, the common complaint among employees that managers rely too heavily on email and don't communicate on face-to-face communication. This basically recedes the confidence in a person. So this is what we need to go around it. Speaking with people over phone in person can take more time and effort, but sometimes it you can actually dismiss uncomfortable situations directly. So it is very essential at times to go across with it. So elements of being professionalism, we come to the very last slide, is to be the best what you can be dependable, trustworthy, be a team player, be respectable. Remember, be ethical and be positive. This is what crystal clear communication is all about. It. This is what we are looking across with it. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. I hope you liked my videos. Thank you for watching.